Søren Kierkegaard, 1813 to 1855, is widely regarded as one of the most influential philosophers of the 19th century, often referred to as the father of existentialism. A Danish theologian, philosopher, and writer, Kierkegaard's work bridged the gap between philosophy and theology, focusing on individual subjectivity, personal responsibility, faith, anxiety, and the absurdity of human existence. He was deeply concerned with the nature of the self, the tension between individual freedom and responsibility, and how one can live a life of authentic meaning. Despite Kierkegaard's relatively short life and limited fame during his lifetime, his ideas have had a profound influence on modern philosophy, psychology, literature, and theology. Kierkegaard's exploration of the human condition, particularly the struggles of faith, anxiety, choice, and despair, continues to resonate today. His teachings urge us to confront our deepest fears and uncertainties, while embracing the complexity and paradox of our existence. In this video, we will delve into the life lessons derived from his philosophical works and how they remain relevant in contemporary life. Embrace of individuality and authenticity. The essence of individuality in Kierkegaard's thought. At the core of Kierkegaard's philosophy is the concept of individuality. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who focused on objective truth or the collective, Kierkegaard championed the importance of the individual. He believed that every person is unique, and the quest for meaning begins with an authentic engagement with oneself. He critiqued the tendency of people to lose themselves in social conventions, which he saw as a barrier to true self-discovery. The crowd, in Kierkegaard's view, represents a force that inhibits personal growth by pressuring individuals to conform. For Kierkegaard, the journey of life is a deeply subjective experience. He argued that we cannot rely on external authorities or societal norms to define our purpose or identity. Instead, we must turn inward and reflect on our own beliefs, values, and desires. Authenticity, for Kierkegaard, is not merely a superficial adherence to individuality, it is the constant self-examination and commitment to living according to one's deepest convictions. His famous quote, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are," illustrates the existential danger of inauthentic living, where individuals fail to acknowledge and express their true selves. The struggle for authenticity. Kierkegaard's concept of authenticity is rooted in the struggle to align one's actions with one's true self. This is not an easy task, it involves wrestling with societal pressures, personal desires, and existential doubt. Kierkegaard's writings often explore the painful realization that many people live in a state of self-deception, clinging to roles or identities imposed by external forces, rather than forging their own paths. One of the key works where Kierkegaard explores authenticity is The Sickness unto Death. In this text, he discusses how despair arises when a person fails to live in accordance with their true nature. Despair, for Kierkegaard, is not simply sadness or suffering, but a failure to align oneself with one's essential self. The self must be recognized and cultivated through deliberate choices, and it is only through this struggle that one can attain true authenticity. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on authenticity. Kierkegaard's teachings encourage us to live authentically, despite the challenges that may come with it. To embrace authenticity is to constantly question whether our actions are driven by internal motivations or external pressures. Authentic living requires ongoing self-examination, a commitment to truth, and the courage to make decisions that reflect our true selves. In contemporary life, authenticity often comes into conflict with societal expectations. In a world driven by social media, materialism, and superficiality, Kierkegaard's call to live authentically is especially poignant. His lessons remind us that the quest for individual fulfillment requires introspection, the courage to defy conformity, and a commitment to living in alignment with one's core values. 2. Facing anxiety and the dizziness of freedom. The concept of anxiety in Kierkegaard's philosophy. Anxiety, angst, plays a central role in Kierkegaard's understanding of the human condition. For him, anxiety is not simply fear but a profound existential experience that arises when a person becomes aware of their freedom and the weight of their choices. In the concept of anxiety, Kierkegaard introduces the idea that anxiety is a direct result of human freedom, the realization that we are free to choose our actions and create our own essence. Unlike fear, which is directed at a specific object, anxiety is a general, unfocused sense of unease that stems from the awareness of infinite possibilities. This dizziness of freedom is both liberating and terrifying. Kierkegaard argues that it is through this anxiety that we confront the possibility of becoming who we truly are. Anxiety, for Kierkegaard, marks the point where human beings realize that they are responsible for shaping their own lives. How anxiety is connected to human existence. Kierkegaard's view of anxiety emphasizes its central role in existential growth. Anxiety arises when we are confronted with the vastness of our freedom and the responsibility it entails. This feeling of dread or unease can be overwhelming, but it also signifies that we are on the path to understanding our true selves. By facing our anxiety, we are given the opportunity to transcend it and develop a deeper sense of self-awareness. Anxiety is intricately connected to Kierkegaard's idea of despair. Despair, in his view, is the result of failing to recognize the infinite possibilities within ourselves. It is through anxiety that we begin to confront these possibilities and the responsibility of freedom. In this sense, anxiety is a necessary step toward self-realization, as it forces us to reckon with the fact that we are the authors of our own lives. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on anxiety. Kierkegaard's approach to anxiety offers a profound lesson. Instead of avoiding or suppressing anxiety, we should face it head-on. Anxiety, in its raw form, is an essential part of human existence, and by embracing it, we unlock the potential for personal growth and self-discovery. In today's world, where mental health challenges such as stress and anxiety are increasingly prevalent, Kierkegaard's ideas provide valuable insight into how we can reframe our anxiety as an opportunity for growth rather than a source of fear. His work encourages us to reflect on our freedom and the choices we make, acknowledging that with freedom comes the weight of responsibility. By confronting anxiety, we can better understand our true desires, motivations, and goals, ultimately leading to a more authentic and fulfilling life. 3. The power of choice and responsibility. Freedom and responsibility. Kierkegaard's philosophy is deeply concerned with the concept of freedom. He argues that human beings are fundamentally free, and it is through our freedom that we create our own identity. However, this freedom comes with a heavy responsibility. Each choice we make contributes to who we are, and we cannot escape the consequences of our decisions. In either/or, Kierkegaard presents two modes of life, the aesthetic and the ethical. The aesthetic life is focused on pleasure, fleeting experiences, and avoiding responsibility, while the ethical life is centered on commitment, duty, and moral principles. The ethical life requires individuals to make choices based on values and responsibilities, rather than on momentary desires. The role of choice in personal growth. For Kierkegaard, personal growth is intrinsically tied to the choices we make. Every decision is an opportunity to shape our identity and align ourselves with our true purpose. The ethical life, as Kierkegaard describes it, is one that involves making meaningful choices, choices that reflect our values and commitments. The leap of faith is a powerful illustration of Kierkegaard's belief in the importance of choice. In his work Fear and Trembling, he examines the story of Abraham and his willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham's choice to follow God's command, despite the irrationality of the act, is the ultimate example of making a choice based on faith and personal commitment. This leap is not simply about blind faith but about taking full responsibility for a decision that transcends reason and societal norms. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on choice and responsibility. Kierkegaard teaches that the act of choosing is central to creating a meaningful life. Every choice, no matter how small, contributes to the development of our character and destiny. We must take responsibility for our choices, acknowledging both their power and their consequences. In the modern world, where options seem limitless, Kierkegaard's lessons remind us that our freedom is not a burden but a gift, one that requires conscious, deliberate action. Additionally, Kierkegaard's teachings emphasize the importance of commitment. In a world that often promotes the idea of flexibility and convenience, Kierkegaard challenges us to commit to causes, relationships, and values that give our lives meaning. True fulfillment comes from the courage to make choices that are not just easy but meaningful. 4. The role of faith in overcoming the absurd. Faith beyond reason. One of Kierkegaard's most well-known concepts is the idea of faith as a leap beyond reason. Faith, for him, is not simply belief in something based on evidence or logic, it is an inward commitment to something higher, even in the face of uncertainty or absurdity. In Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard examines the biblical story of Abraham, who, despite the apparent absurdity of God's command to sacrifice his son, chooses to have faith. This leap of faith is not based on rational justification but on a deep, personal commitment. Kierkegaard believed that faith transcends reason because the human experience is inherently paradoxical. We face the contradiction of finite existence and infinite possibilities. Faith, then, is the response to this paradox, a way to make peace with the absurdities of life by embracing them as part of the divine plan. Faith as a personal commitment. Faith, for Kierkegaard, is a deeply personal, inward commitment. It is not about belonging to a religious institution or following a prescribed set of beliefs, but about the individual's personal relationship with the divine. Faith is not merely intellectual assent but an existential decision that gives meaning to life in the face of uncertainty and suffering. Kierkegaard's faith is also closely linked to his concept of the leap. Just as Abraham made a leap into the unknown, individuals must make a leap of faith to embrace the spiritual dimension of existence. This leap is not blind, it is a conscious decision to trust in something greater than oneself, even when reason cannot provide answers. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on faith. Kierkegaard's teachings on faith offer a profound lesson in how to live with meaning despite uncertainty. Faith is not a mere intellectual exercise, it is a choice that allows us to navigate the paradoxes and absurdities of life. In a world often characterized by doubt and skepticism, Kierkegaard's call to make a leap of faith encourages us to commit to something greater than ourselves, whether it be a spiritual belief, a personal mission, or a cause. Faith, as Kierkegaard describes it, provides the strength to persevere in the face of life's challenges. It is through faith that we find a sense of purpose and resilience, even when the answers to life's deepest questions remain elusive. The absurdity of life and finding meaning. Embracing life's contradictions. Kierkegaard's philosophy is filled with paradoxes and contradictions. He believed that life's inherent absurdity is what makes it meaningful. The tension between the finite and infinite, the temporal and eternal, is a central theme in his work. Rather than seeing these contradictions as flaws, Kierkegaard embraced them as essential to the human experience. The absurdity of life, in his view, is not something to be avoided or solved but something to be accepted. The role of struggle in finding meaning. Kierkegaard saw struggle as central to the process of self-realization. Life is not a smooth journey but a series of challenges and contradictions that push individuals to grow. Despair, anxiety, and suffering are not signs of failure but opportunities for transcendence. Through struggle, we confront our deepest fears, confront our limitations, and ultimately find meaning. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on absurdity and meaning. Kierkegaard's philosophy teaches us that life's meaning is not something that can be easily grasped or understood. Instead, meaning arises through our confrontation with the absurd. By embracing the contradictions of existence, we come to realize that it is in the struggle itself that life becomes meaningful. 6. The importance of becoming yourself in a world of expectations. The social and individual tension. In much of his work, Kierkegaard addresses the tension between the individual and society. He critiques how social norms and expectations force people into roles that prevent them from becoming who they truly are. One of the core elements of Kierkegaard's philosophy is his belief that each person must make the effort to become oneself. This involves questioning the roles society assigns to us and understanding our personal desires, motivations, and goals. Kierkegaard saw the masses as a kind of social pressure that pushed people into mediocrity. In the present age, he famously critiques the era's trend towards passivity, conformity, and the lack of true commitment, urging the individual to rise above these influences. He believed that individuals must create their own identity in the face of societal expectations, rather than adopting predefined roles that fail to reflect their true self. The role of becoming in Kierkegaard's thought. To become yourself is a central theme in Kierkegaard's philosophy. In his writings, he emphasizes that personal development and growth are processes rather than fixed endpoints. The struggle to define oneself is part of the human condition. In his existential analysis, Kierkegaard does not provide an easy path to achieving authenticity. Instead, he stresses that personal transformation requires introspection, self-doubt, and often suffering. For Kierkegaard, life's meaning is not discovered but created through choices and actions. Becoming oneself involves breaking free from the superficial distractions of life and embracing the unique responsibilities one has toward their own development. This process requires conscious effort and resistance against societal pressures that try to impose ready-made solutions or identities upon us. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on becoming yourself. Kierkegaard teaches that the path to self-actualization is fraught with difficulties and contradictions, but it is ultimately the only way to live a life that is authentic. The process of becoming yourself involves rejecting societal norms that pressure conformity and embracing the difficult, personal journey of self-discovery. His philosophy asks individuals to question everything they think they know about themselves, examine the source of their desires and actions, and take responsibility for their own identity. In the modern context, where societal expectations such as career success, wealth, and external validation often define worth, Kierkegaard's message remains especially relevant. His work encourages us to ask whether we are truly living for ourselves or merely playing a part in a script written by others. 7. The power of love and the ethical life. Kierkegaard's view of love. Love, particularly in its ethical form, plays a central role in Kierkegaard's understanding of human existence. He believed that love, both in its romantic and platonic forms, is one of the most powerful forces for individual growth and transformation. In Works of Love, Kierkegaard explores how love transcends mere emotional affection and becomes a duty or ethical obligation. True love, for Kierkegaard, is a selfless commitment to the well-being of others, particularly in the context of Christian love, which calls for individuals to love their neighbors as themselves. However, Kierkegaard warns that love is not without its complexities and contradictions. It is not always easy or convenient. In either/or, he contrasts the aesthetic, self-centered view of love with the ethical, self-giving view. The aesthetic form of love is focused on personal pleasure and gratification, while the ethical view requires individuals to commit to the good of the other, even when it requires sacrifice or discomfort. The role of the ethical life in love. For Kierkegaard, love becomes truly meaningful when it is lived out in the ethical realm. The aesthetic form of love is often fleeting and superficial, driven by momentary passions. But the ethical life demands commitment and responsibility. Kierkegaard's idea of love is not merely about feeling love but about actively choosing to live for the other and to promote the good of the other in every circumstance. This ethical view of love transcends romantic relationships and applies to all human interactions. Love, in this sense, is not based on fleeting emotions but on a profound, ethical commitment that binds people together, fostering growth and mutual respect. For Kierkegaard, the ethical life means choosing to love others in the fullest sense, despite the challenges and contradictions inherent in human relationships. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on love. Kierkegaard's lessons on love remind us that true love requires commitment, sacrifice, and responsibility. It is not simply a passive feeling but an active choice to love others despite their flaws, and often in the face of hardship. Kierkegaard's teachings invite us to cultivate an ethical love that promotes the flourishing of those around us. In modern society, where relationships can sometimes be shallow or fleeting, Kierkegaard's conception of love challenges us to adopt a deeper, more ethical view of human connection. His philosophy of love encourages us to look beyond our own desires and prioritize the well-being of others in our relationships, fostering meaningful and lasting bonds. 8. The significance of suffering in the human experience. Suffering and despair in Kierkegaard's thought. Suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience, and Kierkegaard does not shy away from its profound significance. In The Sickness Unto Death, he argues that despair is an essential aspect of human life, especially when individuals fail to recognize the tension between their finite and infinite aspects. Despair occurs when individuals are unable to reconcile their finite existence with their infinite potential. Kierkegaard believed that true despair arises when people lose touch with their true selves and attempt to live according to external pressures. However, Kierkegaard did not view suffering as something to be avoided. He believed that suffering can serve as a catalyst for growth and self-awareness. The challenge of suffering lies not in avoiding it but in learning how to live with it. In this way, suffering has the potential to lead individuals to greater depth and understanding of their existential condition. The role of suffering in self-realization. For Kierkegaard, suffering is not just a negative force but a transformative one. It forces individuals to confront their limitations and inadequacies. In the face of suffering, individuals are compelled to search for deeper meaning and make life-altering choices. Through suffering, we come to understand our own vulnerability and humanity, which ultimately brings us closer to self-realization. Kierkegaard also viewed suffering in a religious context, particularly in the Christian tradition. He believed that Christ's suffering on the cross provided a model for how individuals should approach their own suffering. Just as Christ's suffering led to salvation, our own suffering has the potential to lead us to spiritual and existential growth. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on suffering. Kierkegaard's philosophy teaches that suffering, while painful, is an inevitable and necessary part of the human condition. Rather than resisting or avoiding suffering, we should embrace it as an opportunity for growth and self-awareness. Suffering can act as a mirror, showing us our weaknesses and flaws, but it can also help us deepen our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. Modern life, with its focus on comfort and pleasure, often seeks to minimize or avoid suffering. However, Kierkegaard's teachings remind us that suffering is not only an inevitable part of life but also a potential source of strength, clarity, and transformation. 9. The importance of reflection and self-examination. Self-examination as a tool for growth. One of the key themes in Kierkegaard's work is the emphasis on reflection and self-examination. For Kierkegaard, understanding oneself is the first step toward living an authentic and meaningful life. He believed that many people live without ever truly examining their actions, desires, and motivations. This lack of self-awareness can lead to a life of inauthenticity, where individuals fail to realize their true potential. In The Sickness Unto Death, Kierkegaard discusses the role of reflection in the process of self-realization. Despair, he argues, is the result of failing to reflect on one's true nature and one's existential condition. By engaging in regular self-examination, individuals can gain a deeper understanding of their desires, fears, and motivations, which allows them to live more authentically. Reflection as a path to authenticity. Self-examination is not just about introspection for the sake of it. For Kierkegaard, the goal of reflection is to uncover one's true self, to understand the gap between what we truly are and the roles or identities we might be playing. Through self-reflection, individuals can confront their despair, anxiety, and contradictions, ultimately leading to greater clarity and authenticity. Reflection also involves making conscious, deliberate choices about the kind of life one wants to lead. It is through this process of constant self-reflection that we can shape our lives according to our values, rather than passively living according to societal expectations. Life lessons from Kierkegaard on reflection. Kierkegaard's emphasis on self-examination offers a vital life lesson: the importance of regularly taking time to reflect on our actions and motivations. In a world filled with distractions, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Regular reflection helps us recalibrate our values, realign ourselves with our true purpose, and avoid living in a state of passive conformity. In the fast-paced, often shallow nature of modern life, Kierkegaard's teachings on reflection are more important than ever. By regularly engaging in self-examination, we can better understand our desires and motivations and make choices that lead us toward a more authentic and meaningful life. Living with paradox, the essence of human life. The paradox of human existence. One of the central elements of Kierkegaard's philosophy is his belief in the paradoxes inherent in human existence. We are simultaneously finite and infinite, temporal and eternal, bound by our circumstances yet free to make choices that transcend them. These paradoxes are not merely theoretical, they are the essence of what it means to be human. Life itself is a series of contradictions, and the human being must navigate and make sense of these contradictions in order to live fully. Kierkegaard's paradoxical approach can be seen in his exploration of concepts like the leap of faith, and the tension between faith and reason. The very act of faith itself is a paradox, believing in something that cannot be rationally explained. Similarly, the human condition is a paradox, where we must navigate between our finite existence and our longing for the infinite. Living with paradox in the modern world. In contemporary life, we are often confronted with contradictions that challenge our understanding of existence. We are pulled between competing demands and desires, materialism versus spirituality, pleasure versus duty, individuality versus conformity. Kierkegaard's philosophy offers a way to live with these paradoxes, acknowledging that they are not problems to be solved but truths to be embraced. The modern world, with its complexities and uncertainties, is full of paradoxes. Kierkegaard's teachings remind us that we do not need to resolve these contradictions. Instead, we should learn to live within them, accepting the ambiguity of existence and finding meaning despite it. Life Lessons from Kierkegaard on Paradox. Kierkegaard's exploration of paradox teaches us that life is never simple or linear. Instead of trying to resolve the contradictions within ourselves and our world, we should embrace them as part of the human experience. By doing so, we can live more fully, accepting the complexities of life and finding meaning in the midst of uncertainty. In today's world, where we often seek certainty and resolution, Kierkegaard's teachings on paradox encourage us to find peace in ambiguity and to live with the tension of opposing forces. His philosophy invites us to navigate life's contradictions with grace and understanding. Conclusion. Søren Kierkegaard's philosophy offers profound insights into the complexities of human existence. His exploration of authenticity, anxiety, choice, faith, and the absurd teaches us that life is not a straightforward path but a journey filled with paradoxes, challenges, and contradictions. Through his works, we are encouraged to confront these existential realities head-on, embracing the freedom and responsibility that come with our ability to choose and shape our own lives. Kierkegaard's life lessons continue to resonate with modern readers, providing a roadmap for navigating the uncertainties of life. His call to live authentically, to embrace our freedom, to take responsibility for our choices, and to find faith and meaning in the face of life's absurdities offers a powerful framework for living a fulfilled and meaningful life. In today's world, where many people struggle with issues of identity, anxiety, and the search for meaning, Kierkegaard's philosophy remains a beacon of insight and guidance. By engaging with his work, we can better understand ourselves, confront the paradoxes of existence, and ultimately live lives that are both authentic and meaningful.